Okay.
Brant, this is my mom.
Hello. I'm not a public speaker, so, and I didn't write anything out to read because I probably couldn't read it anyway. But we've got people here from all areas that David was involved in: work, Alpha, Oregon State, family, family friends, Jess's friends. Everybody knew David. And we met skiing. He was a cross-country skier living in Bend, and I was a downhill skier. And he tells everybody I picked him up. And the true story is that we were both in Mount Bachelor eating lunch, and he was wearing knickers, and I skied in knickers. And so I thought, well, he probably was cross country, and I wanted to know more about cross country because I was just downhill. And so I did eventually learn how to cross country, and he took lessons to learn how to downhill because his best friend, Ellen Rossman, and I would go off and downhill ski, and he would go off by himself, and he decided he didn't like that. So then, and one of Jessica's friends made these t-shirts for us. Mine was the skiing because that's how we met. But David actually bought the kit for this jacket and made it for me, sewed it. The guy did everything. So I didn't have to do anything except cook. He didn't cook. So when I met him anyway, it was in '72, and that was back in the days where you wore bell bottoms. When I met him, he wore tie-dyed bell bottoms. Had a mustache, he looked pretty good with that. He had a motorcycle, he wore these leather boots that were really quite sexy, and a leather hat when he wasn't actually on the motorcycle. And so he also had an Austin Healey. He has always been into cars. Unfortunately, that Austin Healey, when he came back to Portland, it leaked on the passenger side, which is where I sat. So he went to get another car, and that's when he bought his first Alfa Romeo. It was a Plum GTV, really cute car. And that's when he moved back to Portland, '72, and he also had a vision of buying property with a view. So, granted, we had just met, but he's buying property that he's planning on living on the rest of his life. And this property he found, it was a complete filbert nightmare. It was one of the oldest orchards, so it was bushes, not trees. And they were full of worms, which I found out the hard way because I was living in an apartment with a sculptured carpet, and he brought in a bag of his filberts from his farm here. And I'm sitting on the floor, and I'm looking at all these little cocoons. And the worms were cocooning in my carpet. So out went those filberts, and said, no, they can't come back. And so anyway, he bought the property. That was in '72. And '73, I took vacation. I went skiing with my friend Nancy, and David came here, took vacation, and put in a septic system. The next year, Nancy and I went skiing again, and David came out here and put the well in. I wasn't going to just sit on the farm, and that wasn't vacation for me. I was going to go skiing. So anyway, we did end up getting married in '74, And he cleared out one of the first, other than the Alpha he bought, was a Decat or whatever with a bulldozer, bulldozed trees out this pathway here. And we got married right out here. There was nothing out here other than his parents had a little travel trailer. And so they toasted us with champagne, and we had to leave because there was no bathroom. It was a very fast wedding. And the neighbors also had been doing all kinds of getting rid of their filberts, and they chose that day to burn. And so we're over here in a wedding, and the ashes are floating and falling down on everybody. So, but got married, immediately went to Gillette, Wyoming. That's where the windmill came from, the hay rake over here. We had to buy a trailer to bring them home. And then that was 74, 75. 75, we went to Spokane, and that's where he really started to do more sailing, because that's when we bought our Banshee. And you see all these flags around here represent him, everything he did. And so we enjoyed Spokane, but really wanted to come back here. So 77, came back here, put a trailer over there, and started deciding where to put the house, whatever. There's a topography map over there because this was all filberts. And he was a surveyor. I'm standing with the stick and in front of every bush, and he is making out the map, deciding where the septic system and whatever we're gonna go. And we ended up building the house in 79. And then, well, I guess now, I've been married 50 years. And in that 50 years, we probably had between 50 and 60 vehicles, counting the tractors, a couple of Ford tractors, and these were not company cars, these were ours. And the Decat, Kubotas, a couple different motorcycles. Then we went on to scooters, and that's when he decided he really liked Alphas, and he couldn't decide what Alphas he wanted. So we ended up most of the time with 3. And of course, my car, not being an Alpha, didn't get the garages. So he loved to drive. The guy was always in some vehicle, and we had an RV. And when Jess was little, she came up with this Mountain Lion Club that she joined, had some friends join, and David used to love to take them places. Again, he could drive. So I think they went to the Capitol building. You went to see dredges, went out to Bonneville Dam, everywhere. And we took RV trips. I think we went to California, we went to Yellowstone, went to Canada. He loved doing the Alpha rallies and touring. He loved making tours. Let's see. RV trips. When he retired and didn't have any place to go, right, in the car, so he decided he would join or work for RATS, which is like your Greyhound bus. So he did that for a while. And then he did school busing. Well, he did fine with that until a couple unruly children decided that they wanted to tattle on him because he stopped the bus to go back and say, "Sit down." And of course they told their mommy, And Mommy called the school, and the school called him in, and he said, bye-bye. You just lost a bus driver. And so then he decided, okay, this church, through the bus driving for school, this church needed a driver. David did not go to church. Wasn't his church, wasn't my church. But they needed a bus driver to go pick up the little old ladies and whatever and take them to church. And those little old ladies just tried to get him to go in, and he'd go, nope, I have my coffee and my paper. I'll see you when you come out. And they also had a group called the Trekkers. And the Trekkers would go places. And again, it was one of these buses, not a big bus, but kind of between a school bus and a van. And he loved doing that because, for one thing, he could talk to them about all the things that they were seeing. And he was very knowledgeable. My sisters, when they would come out, and my mom, he'd take us on tours. And they just loved it because he just was telling them all the history of everything. And so, and about that time, his heart started to act up. And he ended up having to have a pacemaker put in. And that ended his commercial driving because you can't drive commercial people. So the Trekkers got upset and they said, well, we'll take some seats out of this bus so you can still drive us. And they did until like last year. I think he was still doing the Trekkers, and they would go downtown and to tour chocolate areas, went to wineries. I went with them out to the Grotto at Christmas one year, and he would take them out looking at Christmas lights and stuff. And so he still got to drive. I don't think there were too many days in his life he wasn't in a car driving. And you're getting a theme here, right? He, all of a sudden, it was this last year that he had been golfing, doing all kinds of things, and he had to rest a lot more. And his doctors were telling him that his heart was really starting to shut down. And so we, this last year, we went to the Michigan Alpha National Convention, drove up to Lake Louise and Banff. That was on his bucket list. We had been for quite a few years going south. We were snowbirds in the RV. And then during COVID, we didn't go down that year. So he was lusting over Julia's. And I said, you might as well get one now. The car. Anybody named Julia here? The car, the Alfa Romeo. And I said, you might as well get it now before you're too old to learn how to do the push button and whatever, because everything is computer. And of course, the other Alphas didn't have anything. We had only bought one new car in all the years I was married to him, and that was in '79. And of course, it was an Alpha. Otherwise, they were all used cars, so they were all tried and true already. You didn't have to break them in. Even the Julia was, but he got that Julia, and every time he got in it, he said, I love this car. I love this car. So he loved to drive it. And when it got to be about October, he had an episode where his heart actually stopped for 35 seconds. And luckily, he was sitting in a chair in the house. He had been walking all over the house. I'm thinking, oh God, if that had happened, who knows? And so his doctor's office did see that, because with his pacemaker, whatever they were monitoring, called him in. His heart doctor said, you can't drive anymore. Well, you know how that went over. And it just sort of went downhill from there when he realized he could not drive anymore. And this guy, he started working on car engines, taking them apart, putting them together when he was 14 or 15, and just loved driving. And when he started to really slow down a lot more, he just decided, he got his affairs in order, and he broadcasted to all of you, I'm going on hospice. Well, my God, if he didn't get texts and emails from a lot of you, it was overwhelming. He was sitting in his chair going, oh my, oh my. Jess would come when he was awake, because he was sleeping a lot more then, because he really went quite fast. And she would read these to him, and he was just totally overwhelmed that so many people thought so well of him. And he was just overwhelmed. He was just amazed. So I thank you all, because rarely do you ever get a chance to hear how people think about you, and especially in positive ways. So, to my knowledge, we didn't get any.
No,
They were all really bad. So, anyway, he just went very fast. You know, I think it surprised every one of you. It surprised us. When he went on hospice, we really didn't think he was dying in 3 weeks, but he did. And he died at home, and we were around. Jessica and Alan at that time were able to work from home, so they could drop down. Jess could even bring her computer down and do stuff. And so anyway, surprised us all.
Yay.
Thank you all for coming.
When I was 16 and he was 13, it was his birthday, and I had a boyfriend at that time who could
13, not 14.
find things for me, and we went out to the junkyard and found him a straight 8 engine, and hauled it into Portland and put it in the garage, and he and my dad took it apart and put it back together. So that's kind of what sounds like the beginning. But even before that, of course, I had a license to drive before he did, and he had a Model A, beautiful ice blue Model A, and it was a crank one. We'd take it to down to downtown, and did what was called then drag the gut, right? We'd just drive it around, and so was everybody else, driving their cars around. And I had to drive because he couldn't, well, when it heated up and stopped, he'd have to hop out and crank it up, right? So we took a lot of time going around that area. So we had cars, and he had cars from the very beginning. Well, prior to that, I think he had trains, little the toy train thing. But I still feel grateful, to have had a brother who wanted to do cars when I wanted to, but it just wasn't the girl thing to do. And yet I am an avid driver as well. And I've had a number of great cars. Some of them were Alfa Romeos, and the Porsches. Those were great too, because those cars can go really fast, and I like that in a car. But the Alphas were the ones that could hop over things and go around corners. The Porsche would do this. Totally different drive. But I liked all those cars. So there were many things that Dave and I never got to do in our adult lives together. But we did, and you'll hear more of that from our other siblings here. And I want to say on behalf of my sister, who was going to come here, of course, she's caring for her doggie who is having a problem right now, a physical problem. So she can't be here, but we are certainly going to share the slideshow and stuff with her. And I hope I get to talk to more of you while we're just wandering around and stuffing our faces with ice cream, because that's the other thing that we have in common. And I do tell people, I think it's true that genetically in the Beach clan, we have to have ice cream. It's part of our needs. Yeah, it's true. Okay. You next? Huh? Of course. Go, Chris.
I'm Chris Beach. I'm Dave's younger brother. Dave and I shared a bunk bed throughout our childhood. I was on the top, he was on the bottom. And if I was a little bit of a pesty younger brother, I would get a good kick on the bed to keep me in place. So, he was a great brother for many, many years. He was my best man. I got married several years before he did, out in Massachusetts, and I asked Dave to be my best man, and he, as best man, had the obligation of giving a toast at the reception. I married a Swedish girl, and so everybody there was Swedish. So Dave decided, instead of making up a speech about me, he would just use a very well-known Swedish statement or cheer as a way of celebrating my marriage. And so I'm going to ask you right now to do something. We go, Skål! Okay. All together now. Skål! Skål to Dave Beach. What a wonderful, very active man he was for all the many years of his life. He lived a full and complete life. There's no question about it. Jess and Alan asked me to talk a little bit about two topics that really helped form Dave's character and formed all of our character. And those two topics are camping and sailing. This is Gorgeous George. Now, if you looked at it this way, some of you will recognize, oh, that's an antelope skull. Our dad and our maternal grandfather went on a camping trip in Eastern Oregon right after World War II, and they found this skull out in the desert. And Dad brought it home, and we turned it around and turned it into an icon for our family. For every camping trip we ever went on, this Gorgeous George, which was our name for it, would be attached to the hood ornament. Back in the days, most of you, or a lot of you here, I can see, yeah, you know what a hood ornament is. That's where this would sit, out in the front of the car, and it led our family on some really wonderful adventures. Dave told me many times throughout his life what an inspiration and model of how to live a good life our dad was for him. And so our dad was our leader when it came to going on camping trips, and I'll talk in a minute about sailing as well. And the really important thing I think about our camping trips, which was very common activity, is that's an activity where a family can kind of get together and bond that doesn't really happen in everyday life. In everyday life, you know, one kid is going that way, the other one's going that way, dad's going to work. And to bring you together and really be a family, camping, I can't think of a better recreation activity than camping. And so that's what we grew up doing. And I think that Dave's entire life demonstrates in many ways that learning about, you know, what makes a good family life together. And he certainly did that in his own life. And we all did, for that matter. So that's Gorgeous George, and camping as one part of our life. Another icon of our family is a life jacket. Again, our dad loved sailing. He learned sailing himself on Lake Michigan when he lived in Chicago before they moved to Oregon. And that was right before Robin was born. They arrived in Oregon in 1941 in October, which, as you all know, is 2 months before Pearl Harbor. And my dad got a job very quickly in the Army, or in the shipyard down on the Willamette River at Kaiser, and worked through the war at that. He was older and not eligible for service. After the war, my dad decided that in addition to camping, we should take up sailing, and we got a boat that we named the Five Winds. How many people know the Five Winds? If you've sailed on the Columbia River, you must know this. There's the north wind, the south wind, the east wind, the west wind, and then there's the five wind, the fifth wind, which is, of course, no wind at all. We learned the current would take you as far towards Astoria as you could possibly get. But we had a little motor that my dad knows how to run to get us back to the dock. So, in sailing and all of us learning how to sail, the very first rule we learned was you always wore a life jacket. And we instantly never did any resistance to that because we knew the family story. Our own paternal grandfather had drowned in a canoeing accident in the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh, where my dad grew up. And he drowned because there was no life jackets in the canoe when it capsized. And our grandfather, had to hold up his daughter and her friend, one of his daughters and her friend, because they couldn't swim. And my dad learned a lesson in that accident. He was right there when his father disappeared under the waves. And he learned that, and we knew that story from early childhood, that if you're going to do something exciting and fun, like sailing, you need to do it safely. And so we always did. Basically, and I've watched my brother in all the different driving activities and everything. I remember him taking me on the racetrack out at Delta Park, and he drove that car at its maximum, but it was safe. And I think that really is a theme. Those of you who know Dave would probably recognize that pretty easily. You know, he would take something to a limit and have a good time, but he wasn't about to do something truly dangerous if it could be avoided.
Got his jacket on right there.
You there with a life jacket?
Yep.
All right. Speaking for the heart today of my brother, he was such a wonderful person. I couldn't think more highly of any, very few other people are at that level within my heart. And it's very sorrowful for me to see him go. He helped me very much when my late wife died only 2 years ago, and Dave was right there to help me during her Alzheimer's. Some of you know Alzheimer's. It's a tough way to go. He helped me at that point. He and I found a cemetery where I live out in Maine. And we found a cemetery very similar to the one that we were just in a few minutes ago, and that's where my wife is and where I'm going to be too. And there's a similarity and a connection between us that was really unbreakable. I learned something when my wife passed. She was a little younger than I am, only she was a little older than Kathy, but it happens. And I finally came to realize, and some of you know this feeling, I'm sure, from grieving, that when someone passes, it doesn't really, it turns out it doesn't matter if it was 75 years or 80 years or what the years added up to. What matters is you realize they lived a complete life, and they lived a full life. And certainly we can all here today say that's what Dave Beach really did. And so we miss him, we're sorry he's gone, but he did in fact live a very full and complete life. So wherever you are, Dave, we love you very much. We miss you always. Thank you so much for coming today to honor Dave's life.
A flower child.
Okay. I'll be quick, but I didn't get a chance to talk about him as my dad at the cemetery, so. Whew. Between my work and the farm, there's so much every day that reminds me of my dad and gives me joy. When I think of my dad, I remember him on his hands and knees with me on the ground, playing with my Barbies and Lionel trains and making pancakes on Saturday mornings. We built my playhouse and the outdoor movie screen together, stopped for blizzards at every DQ between the Willamette Valley and the Oregon coast. He was there for all my soccer games and track meets and was a devoted cheerleader for me and all of my friends. He taught me how to sail my mini fish sailboat and also to drive a manual transmission car, important life skills to have. As you all know, he had endless enthusiasm, especially when it came to imparting his knowledge and love of sailing, Alfa Romeos, trains, surveying the Pacific Northwest, you name it. I have multiple friends with sailboats, courtesy of my dad's enthusiasm. One of the things I love most about my dad is his full body emotions. My favorite was his dancing. If you put on some good music, even if he was sitting down in the middle of a conversation, first you'd see his foot start tapping, and you'd see his knees start bouncing, then you'd see his arms start going. Pretty soon his whole body was rocking out dance moves. So for my birthday one year, we captured it all on video, and it is my gift to all of you today to kick off this party. Do I need someone? Oh, it gets going.
Better without me.
Wait, you're supposed
Right?
to sing, what is it, Saturday Night Live?
No.
I mean,
Saturday
Saturday
Night
Night
Fever.
Staying Alive.
Staying
Staying
Alive.
Alive. This is my...
You didn't have to ask him to do it. You just put the music on.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, we're going to end our formal remarks there with this. I hope it kicks off celebration. We have the ice cream van back there, as Dave would love, so please go get some ice cream. We have great exhibits all over the farm, not just here, but tucked away. There's a little map back there by the drink, or somewhere over there. But yeah, have fun, explore. Maybe you'll learn some new things about Dave you never knew. And come up and ask the family and talk to us. We'd love to talk to you about Dave and memories and all that. And enjoy the sunshine too. It showed up. Yes.